There is a being that exists who is so closely related to us, yet is so unknown. This is Susie and her daughter, Mary Rose. As one of our closest relatives, they are a symbol of hope for our future. They serve as ambassadors for their family in the wild. But Susie's family back home is disappearing.
Incredibly exciting. We found the bonobos.
These are bonobos. An animal most people have never heard of. In the wild, bonobos live in only one country, the Democratic Republic of Congo in Central Africa. Their habitat encompasses a vast range of dense forest just south of the Congo River. History knows bonobos as the people of the forest.
When you see a bonobo, it's inspiring. It opens a new door. When you see a bonobo's eyes, when a bonobo looks at you, you can tell there's an intelligence.
The first baby bonobo I met was so poor, near to die. And his eyes have so many hope in just look at me and I have to do something. I cannot resist.
Bonobos are very good peacemakers. They have their own strategy to make peace. And this is by making love. So, in this world, I think that we need such model of making peace and based on love. So this is a lesson, a unique lesson, but we can learn from bonobos.
Bonobos have done something that no other ape, including humans, have been able to do, which is maintain peace. So bonobos don't have warfare, bonobos don't kill each other. Chimpanzees do, gorillas do, and orangutans do. If you valued peace more than anything, you'd say the bonobo is the most intelligent animal.
The people who share the forest with bonobos, people that we work with, they eat a lot of the same foods. They literally share the forest. They share the resources together.
Bonobos are able to understand human expression, human language, gesture.
But bonobo look at you really deeply. I think you want to see your soil.
They have so much to teach us about ourselves, about our sexuality, about our intelligence, about how to live peacefully. Legends talk about how bonobos and humans were brothers in the past and sisters, and how, you know, what happened? Why did the bonobo go off to live in the forest?
Bonobos are the only ape species to live in a matriarchal society. Females are highly respected by the males. Intimacy and sexuality play a key role in bonobo society. Primates are invested in long-term maternal care. This is why bonobos especially have a low birth rate. The female bodies don't ovulate as often as humans. Sex and reproduction are completely separate in bonobo alliances. Loyalty, compassion, and peace are rooted in bonobo culture.
I began to understand that there were a number of species of apes, not just chimpanzees, and the most alluring one was the bonobo, that anyone hardly knew anything about. Okay, here's your baby.
The scientific community had settled on this pattern, like humans are aggressive, chimps are aggressive, we've always been aggressive. And now we got an equally close relative that was much more peaceful and sexy and sort of hippies.
We have no evidence that bonobos kill each other in the wild, no territorial disputes where somebody ends up dead. It ends up that males are not typically able to coerce females or get them to do something that they don't want. And in fact, quite the opposite. It's never been observed in bonobos that the most dominant individual in the group is a male at all.
When people see that they're a matriarchal society and they live in peace and harmony, just that alone implies something about the power of the feminine in perhaps in our species. Should we be looking at that? Should we be considering that?
Bonobos are bisexual. Actually, the most frequent form of sex in the wild that's been observed is female-female sex.
Quite often they will use affiliative behaviors, whether it's play or even they'll use what are called sociosexual behaviors. They'll rub their genitals together and it seems to basically soothe them and make them feel better.
Some people might want to talk about their sexuality, and does that contribute to their living in peace and harmony? A lot of people would love to hear that. Yes, it does.
They have it because it feels good. I mean, they are having orgasms, they are bonding with each other, they are sharing energy and good feelings. Oftentimes, bonobos will have sex when there's really good fruit around, and they're really happy.
I think the human male, in its politics and territoriality and dominance drive, is very chimp-like. The society as a whole, the human society as a whole, I'm not sure is so chimp-like, because bonobos have all these sexual reconciliations. They're very sexy creatures like humans are, I think. And they have a very gentle and sensitive side, which humans also have. So I do feel that humans have something of both. If you look at, let's say, male human politicians in Washington, yes, you have chimpanzee behavior. But if you look at other aspects of human society in terms of bonding and solidarity and conflict resolution, you maybe have more like a bonobo society. Humans are, for example, very highly empathic, like bonobos are. And so yes, you have people who emphasize very much how we are an aggressive species and territorial, and all of that is true. But within our society in daily life, we're not every day like that. And I think we're very bonobo-like, and so that's what I mean when I say there's a bonobo in all of us.
What would theories of evolution have been if we had known about bonobos earlier on? People might have thought that you know, humans were originally a matriarchal society as opposed to a patriarchal society, and that, you know, bisexuality is normal, for example.
So there's a possibility of a relationship between humans and bonobos that exists that is different from the kind of relationship that humans are capable of having with other apes. And it is some mysterious remnant of our history. We can feel it, it's palpable, it's real. We don't know how it got that way, but it's important.
Bonobos have a special function in that they are still the forgotten ape, and so it's still important to get that message out that we have an equally close relative who has quite a different society.
Hunting for the commercial bushmeat trade is one of the biggest threats to bonobos. Photojournalist and activist Carl Amon traveled into the bonobo habitat and found distressing signs of hunting.
We are here at this weekly forest market in the Sifosal Confession, and we have just come across this bonobo carcass which was just brought in by some traders. And it's a relatively fresh carcass. It's smoked, but it's probably not more than a few days old. And it's going to be sold here for roughly about $7 to $8.
The bushmeat trade and habitat loss are the two biggest threats to bonobos. Because of this, bonobos are one of the most endangered of the great apes. Bonobos were the last of the great apes to be discovered and could be the first African ape to become extinct.
The bushmeat trade in Central Africa and throughout the bonobo habitat is just completely out of control. It's the biggest threat to bonobos and to all other wildlife in the forest. I mean, some forests in Central Africa have been literally hunted out. You have empty forests.
Now, unfortunately, in terms of the bonobo, the war devastated all of the Congo, and it devastated the bonobo habitat. Now, that's over now, but the infrastructure is still destroyed. Hunters, the troops came in and they hunted everything, killed everything, elephants, hippopotamus, and bonobos are a popular bushmeat.
Basically, bushmeat, smoked meat, is the only thing that people can carry that will stay fresh, if you will, that people can carry for weeks or even months to a market and sell. And that is really what's fueling this incredible trade in wildlife. Ever since the war and even before the war, the infrastructure is so completely broken down that people can't, there's no means to take their crops to market. And only now, and this is a big part of what we need to do to conserve the bonobos and the rainforest, is to provide other means of livelihood, other ways to get crops to market, so that bushmeat is not the only thing that people can sell. Our mission is to protect the bonobos in the wild and their habitat, and to ensure the survival of the species over the long term. And in the course of doing this work, we have rescued probably over 15 orphan bonobos And thank goodness, you know, there's only one place in the world to take an orphan bonobo at this point, which is Lolia Bonobo. It's a sanctuary near the capital city of Kinshasa.
Someone bring me a baby chimpanzees. I think it was a chimpanzees because in the zoo we have 17. And the director of the zoo tell me, "Ah, Maman Claudine, don't put your heart in this animal. It's a bonobo. He never survived in captivity. We don't know why, but they don't. All these orphans from the bushmeat want to die without the mothers. So this first bonobo survived. It was Mikeno, my first bonobo, the name of a fantastic volcano in the Virunga that I climbed. And I began to have 1, 2, 3, 4. This baby bonobo arrived more and more. So I met Carl Amann, a famous activist against bushmeat, and Carl said, "Why you don't create a sanctuary?" It was the same then for bonobos. It was the first time I hear this name, sanctuary. But a lot of bonobo arrived because we enter in a new war, and a lot of guns and bullets are in the habitat of bonobo, and very quick I was with 11 bonobos. I create Lolia Bonobo, who means the paradise of bonobo, a place where you never have problem. Not be thirsty, not be hungry, a paradise for bonobo.
Bonobos hold the key to understanding our own origins. Scientists, conservationists, and a group of dedicated locals are working hard to preserve something so closely related to us. Preserving their land, preserving their culture, and what it means to them is of great value.
We actually believe that most people who live in the rainforest have a pretty good understanding of where they live. And traditionally around the world, many of the places, if not most of the places that are still pristine, are places where there are local indigenous inhabitants who have been protecting those places. They just need support and they need their capacity built so they can become stewards of the land.
We've had amazing success by working with the local people who live with the bonobos and by working with Congolese leaders, Congolese conservationists who are our partners. And together we've been able to secure over 13,000 square miles of land, 2 nature reserves that are community managed. One, the Sankuru Nature Reserve, is larger than the state of Massachusetts, and the other is about the size of Rhode Island, the Kokolopuri Bonobo Reserve. Both of these sites literally began at the grassroots with local initiatives.
Bonobos in Kokolopuri, which is a very special place. Bonobo is culturally protected by taboos because in Kokolopuri, bonobos are considered to be one of our ancestors, a very close relative, and there are taboos to naturally protect bonobos.
Bonobos are so rare, so endangered. We don't even know at this point how many are left in the wild, but bonobos are still being hunted throughout their habitat. A female bonobo only has a child every 5 years. So when you hunt bonobos, they don't bounce back very quickly. So this is why, you know, they've just disappeared from places where they used to exist. Bonobos inhabit the second largest rainforest on the earth, the Congo Basin rainforest. Next to the Amazon, it's the second lung of the planet. These two huge rainforests provide so much of the oxygen that we need to exist that they are critical for our own survival. So by saving the bonobos, you save the second lung of the earth. You save a vital natural resource that we must all have to survive.
Bonobos are wiped out. It's like the canary in the coal mine. That forest is at risk. If those bonobos aren't protected, it means those forests are at risk. If those forests are at risk, our planet's at risk. Just do the math.
Zoos, including Columbus, give $130 million to field conservation each year. Susie's journey has led her to the Columbus Zoo, where she is building a family and making the connections that are so essential to bonobos.
Bonobos, such as those at Columbus Zoo, which has one of the best bonobo exhibits, allows these captive bonobos, who could never go back to the wild anyway, to serve as true ambassadors for their species. There's no better way to learn about a bonobo than to see one live.
When you look into a bonobo's eyes, I think you can really see the depth of their personality. Not just can you tell that they're thinking back, but you can see the mischievous in some of their eyes. Some of them you can see just the concern that they have for others. There are so few places that you can see bonobos, and they've been largely ignored in the media to date, so people haven't heard about them. They didn't grow up seeing, you know, information about bonobos in textbooks or movies. So when they come to Columbus, you know, they're introduced to our closest living relative, and they didn't even know that they were out there. They're very special to me. They're my absolute favorite animals at the zoo. I was drawn in by their intelligence and just really enjoyed the mental challenge. When I started, Susie was the dominant female. And I actually think she would have maintained that position in the group, but she got sick, and Unga, who's in the yard behind me, took advantage when Susie wasn't feeling well. Unga's a little bit of a bully, and she asserted herself over Susie. The rest of the group really didn't follow her lead, though. They still went to Susie for appeasement, comfort, anything. When things would happen, they would look to Susie to sort of make it right.
Jimmy is one of our older males here, and he actually does have probably the closest bond with Susie. We just got the paternity test back on Mary Rose, and Jimmy is the father of Mary Rose, which is so exciting because we thought so, but you just always want to make sure. She looks just like Jimmy in her face too. It's so adorable. we always know when we put those two together, it's going to be a good day for those two, because they're very comfortable with each other. They're kind of like an old married couple, you know? They know each other's, you know, ins and outs, and they just are so excited to be together and sit and groom. I think Mary Rose will become close to Jimmy because he's such a good father. He knows when to be gentle. He knows when he can kind of get a little bit, you know, roughhousing with them and whatnot. And he's very patient. He's a very patient male.
Unless you're fully protected, your life in the wild is really, these days, with the felling of the forests, with the hunting for food, the hunting for the live animal trade, it's a pretty grim life. And so a really good zoo, and there are some now really good zoos that give them a good family life and a good social structure. They provide them with lots to do, which is one of the big horrors of a captive situation, that they don't have their minds stimulated. Keepers who understand them, and an adoring public. So there are zoos, and some zoos really are benefiting conservation. So you can see the captive group in a way being an ambassador, and the zoo raising money through its patrons to help a conservation program in the country where the animal comes from.
But today we know that our mission is not just to let the public here, over 2 million people in Columbus, see these animals, but to also learn about these animals. And the one word we hope is taken away is love. Whether it be the bonobo or the gorilla or the orangutan, whatever animal it is, most of them are threatened or endangered. And some of them are critically endangered. And we hope people leave here with a greater sense of love for these animals, because without the word love, whether it's in the United States or in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, if the people that live there don't love them, then none of us can do anything. So we have to tackle our public here, and then the main thing we have to do is teach people in these areas of the world how important these animals are to not just their survival, but to the world's survival.
Bonobo's social system is one of cooperation and peace, and distinguishes them from every other ape species. In fact, they are one of the most peaceful animals in the world. Some would say they are one of the world's hidden gems. Legends say that we lived together with bonobos thousands of years ago. Perhaps we can again. Bonobos need our help. Learn how you can become involved in saving one of our closest and most underrepresented cousins.
ACOPRIC pour le développement durable du Sankourou, ACOPRIC pour la protection de Bonobo, ACOPRIC pour la RNSA. Et Longo na BCI, tout battre la Bonobo. Oh, Zali Nyamaya, kasi ya bolei. Honorable Cheo Kitondo, Honorable Charles Coton, Honorable Omba Pene Chonga, Choix même. Maman Bonobo Sally Cox. Et Papa Bonobo Michael Hurley. Ensemble, soutenons la forêt de paix de Bonobo. Entouré d'une grande forêt, riche en biodiversité, le Sankourou regorge une richesse écologique et extraordinaire constituée de plusieurs types d'arbres recherchés, de plusieurs espèces telles que Bonobo, éléphant au capi-buffle, bongo et plusieurs espèces de singes, d'oiseaux et de poissons. Avec la réserve naturelle de Sankourou, le développement assuré. Loubala et Silo, bébé Bonobo. Bienvenue Moupenda, Benjamin Bonobo. Eric Kandolo, bébé Bonobo. La valeur qui n'a pas attendu le nom.